Well, welcome to the Nonprofit Renaissance. How are we doing, Colin?
I'm doing good, man.
Dude,
How are
this
you,
is H. Colin, thank you for subscribing, for listening, for commenting, and sharing this. We appreciate the support, and we're excited about today and what we're doing. Now, first off,
excited.
We're here to do what? We're here to grow.
We're to help you go further
And then grow faster. See, can you grow further?
I guess you could,
and
you could go faster.
Both,
but that's our NASCAR podcast.
That's the spin-off. So, but we're excited. Without further ado, we've got the Fundraising Rebel in the house.
The Fundraising Rebel.
Now, if
herself,
that's not a hashtag or a trend or a title to a book,
it should be, and hopefully it's about to be. But she is the VP of Philanthropy at New Life Solutions. She's a courageous nonprofit leader dedicated to pioneering bridge-building solutions that bring together society's greatest needs with donors' desires to change the world. Give it up for the esteemed, the influential, the indelible Lisa Stueckemann.
Let's go.
Here she is.
Welcome,
Thanks, you guys.
How are you today?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. And we're going to talk about something I really love.
Yeah.
So let's do this.
Being a rebel. Tell me. Now, every time I've seen you, you're wearing amazing glasses. We got to start there. Now, we'll share a photo. We'll go video for this one if we need to.
Yeah.
But the fashion sense and the glasses are fantastic. So you got to tell me more.
Thank you. I need to see, And oh my goodness, this is happening.
We're documenting right now.
It's important.
Vision's important.
Good.
Like I'm pro-vision. I don't know if you guys have had that conversation, but like I am pro-vision. But anyway, I just think there's so many fun options out there today, and they're like cheaper than shoes.
Boom.
So I have quite a few.
Yeah. It's a little easier to make that call.
But they have to match the shoes, though. So then
no worries.
It's a can of worms.
No
Do
worries.
they? Do they? Is that
Everything
something
matches, Colin.
Okay. See,
Lisa requested matching headphones for today's podcast.
And
which we
you
did.
nailed it.
Which we did. We did.
I know. Thank you.
How many pairs? How many pairs do you own?
Shoes or glasses?
Glasses.
Glasses would be 10.
Right about 10?
Yeah.
Loyal to one brand?
Oh.
Yeah, just because everything's loaded in there. You know what I mean? They got me.
Boom.
Warby Parker?
No. Zenny.
My wife is big Warby Parker.
Gotcha.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Well, today's episode brought to you by Zenny. Zenny.
Yeah.
Send Lisa your support and your free glasses for her to try. There you go. We got just a fast run. This is bonus. This is extra. This is fun. And it's a this or that, Lisa. We're going to jump in back and forth, this or that. First thing that comes to mind, it's like speed dating.
Wow.
Podcast. You ready?
Yeah.
Disney, Universal.
Oh, Disney.
East Coast or the West Coast?
East.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Pitbull or poodle?
Poodle.
Interesting. Okay.
Chicken or steak?
Steak.
One check or separate checks?
Oh, well, one from me. I'll handle the check if that's what you're asking. I would love to take all of you out, you guys, and it will be my treat.
Look at her.
It's recorded.
Yeah. Psalms or Proverbs?
Ooh, Psalms.
Psalms. As a creative musician, she is, right?
I have to have a little lament.
Yes. Deep dish or thin crust?
Oh, deep dish. And I can tell you, I have the recipe memorized. Would you like to know how to make it right now? I'm just going to tell you right now.
Let's go.
This is Chicago girl. Okay, you need a pan that's about 14 inches round with a 1.5 inch lip. Okay, making this easy. Go to Publix and get their pre-rolled pizza dough out of the bakery section. Okay, you're gonna have to stretch it a little bit, lay it over the pan. Okay, so it's just a hair over the edge. Okay.
Wow.
Then you're going to get sliced provolone cheese and a bag of shredded mozzarella. That is your first layer.
What?
Sliced.
Cheese first, sliced. Provolone, then shredded mozzarella. After that, you're going to put your meat. It can be pepperoni, sausage, whatever you like, okay? Then after that, you put your vegetables.
Sauce? Not yet? Over?
Not yet. Slow down, H.
Come on.
You're not in
Slow
charge
it down.
here anymore.
Listen, I am from Chicago.
Veggies, okay.
Veggies next chopped. I like pepper trio, different colors. Then you're going to put a really thick sauce over it. So if you're not making it by hand, which that's okay. In the grocery aisle, I want
It's
you to.
not really. She's not. It's
Iffy.
For Floridians, it's okay.
But take the jar and make sure that it's not runny. It needs to be very thick.
Gotcha.
Okay, then you're gonna put that all over the top, and then you roll your crust around the edge. Throw it in the oven, 350, 45 minutes.
For 3 weeks. Leave it.
I know, right?
And
The pan will probably weigh a good 4 to 5 pounds. But there it is.
Okay, so real quick.
So that's a casserole. You're telling me.
That's what someone knows.
I know. Sorry.
It is a pizza.
I know. I'm messing.
Pizza. So what do you do when someone gives you thin crust? Are you just like, what do I do with this?
It's a napkin, right? She wipes her
It's a
hands.
napkin.
She just kind of cleans her hands with it.
I think it has its place, but it has its place. It's okay. Sometimes I eat thin crust too. But having lived in other places than Chicago, I had to just learn how to make it myself because it just would make me sad. I'd go to a place that said Chicago style pizza, and my husband and I would sit there and be like, I'm offended.
So wait, in Florida, Tampa Bay area, give us, where's the scoop? Where's the deep dish? Is there one?
Well, we just got a Rosati's in Largo.
Okay.
And I would highly recommend the deep dish.
Rosati's.
It's on Almerton.
Okay.
But on the beach, I'm a huge fan of Pajano's, and that is thin crust, but that's just like having a quick Friday night pizza thing. Those are the only two I can recommend.
So the BJ's deep dish I've been eating, just not, okay, cool. Just want to make sure. I knew that. I kind of knew that, but almost not inside or outside?
Where?
Look at that.
Anywhere. Just
outside.
Outside. On the beach.
Yeah.
Which was the next one? Beach or Broadway?
Oh, that's fine. Probably beach for the long haul.
For the beach. True. Email or text?
Text.
Uber or Lyft?
Uber.
Early morning or late night?
Oh, late night.
Late night.
Late night.
Drama or rom-com?
Oh, rom-com's fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a good one lately.
Okay.
But yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
There you go.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Tea is no.
No, it's a cop-out.
It's weak coffee.
Last one. U2 or Rage Against the Machine?
Okay. You too.
U2.
Not going to answer that. I'm not answering
well, just
that.
Music.
Just so weird.
Just get rock and roll.
Just
get rock and roll.
So weird.
We ask all our guests that. So yeah.
That question specifically.
I'm going to check. Thanks.
Babe, we're so glad to have you, Lisa. We've been partners for some time. Love what you do, how you lead.
Thanks.
And just even finished, we're going to date it here a little bit, attending an event that you put together with your team. Fantastic event, talking about vision, casting vision towards the need. And tell us a little bit about, first off, New Life Solutions, what you do there, and the history of how you got there.
Yeah. So New Life Solutions is a faith-based ministry. And we are located in the Tampa Bay area, so Pinellas County and Hillsborough County. But we provide multiple services, and they're all free. So that's really important to mention. And our mission is to protect the unborn, share the gospel, and transform our communities one life at a time. And that one life at a time is paramount in the work that we do. So whether that is partnering with someone who is going through maybe an unplanned pregnancy, they feel alone, they feel scared. We're here to walk them through their options. We also have a counseling ministry, and this just isn't sitting down and just chatting with somebody. It's with counselors who have clinical hours in trauma and PTSD, which is necessary in these days, right? Yeah. Then we also have abortion recovery ministry for those who have maybe made that decision and then they're regretting it, or they're not living a full life because of the weight that they carry. We want to help them with that freedom. And then also we have a student ministry that goes into high schools, goes into juvenile justice systems, all different ages of schools, school children, to reach them in regard to how their decisions they make today affect their future.
Wow.
So it's a full ministry. We have about 40 employees, and it's all really in Jesus' name. That's what motivates everything we do.
So Jesus was a rebel. And you're following his footsteps. So tell me about the fundraising. You've done this before. Obviously, this is not your first rebel rodeo, but tell me about your journey to leading here at New Life in Florida, but the journey in fundraising. You're certified everything nonprofit, everything fundraising. I mean, I can go through the accolades, but We love who you are and how you lead.
Oh, thanks.
Tell us how you got to doing this.
Well, so why don't we start by talking about this whole Fundraising Rebel concept?
Bring it.
Can we do that?
Please, yes.
I'm intrigued.
So let's talk about what it means to be a rebel. So, you have that picture of James Dean or whatever, and, there's an element to that. But really, if you think about rebels, they see the world a little differently. They're disruptors. They challenge the status quo. They're the ones, when you're in a meeting and in community, someone goes, all right, well, then we agree. And everybody gets up to leave, and there's one still in their chair that says, I wasn't quite on board. And then it's going to explain something from a totally different point of view. Okay, so that's a rebel. Then let's talk about what a fundraiser is. Okay, the ideal fundraiser is really strong in two areas. The first area is they love the humans. They just love humans. They may be extroverts, but they don't have to be like raging extroverts. They just enjoy finding out about people, their story, what motivates them, where they come from, all the questions you just asked me. And then they're equitably as good in administration. So they understand that there's a plan and there's a process, and they understand that you need to go back to your office and write in the CRM system what just happened in that meeting. What do I need to remember? What are the next steps? They need to actually keep track of this relationship. So every fundraiser that I've ever hired is 50-50 in that, or 40-60. But they're rarely creative.
Interesting.
They're like, look, give me the plan, give me the people, I'm going to go, right? But I was a creative first. So I was the child that started playing violin at 4.
Wow.
Moved to cello at like 10, and then mix in some theater on some large stages, then going into like choir and acting, then ultimately getting my degree in musical theater from the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music.
Nice.
That's the lens I see everything through. So I've been
opposite of administrative and opposite of people, but,
right.
But still, it's performer more than,
it's
right?
more of looking at the world incredibly broadly.
Absolutely.
And wanting meaningful experiences for donors, because that's what the arts is all about, no? That it would be meaningful.
Absolutely.
Right? That piece of art in the museum would mean something to somebody, right? Nevertheless, theater, music, we all know what that does to our soul. So that's, when I say Fundraising Rebel, those are the pieces that make that up.
That's amazing. Is the book in the works? Has it released yet?
Oh, I don't know. No,
we got to have dibs on the publishing here then. We're going to call it.
I mean,
I will welcome you into the process.
Well, we know it's in the works theoretically, but
and potentially the musical.
Oh, there we go.
Come on.
That would be amazing.
That's what would inspire, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's incredible. I definitely have some follow-ups to that. Yeah. One is this, so the idea of being a rebel. So I love the idea of it's that pushing the envelope, staying in the room past the first idea or the settled ideas. It's like, yeah, but wait, there's one more thing. But what if, right? It's asking the what if. Tell me about this challenge, because as you lead others as well, how do you avoid being a contrarian and just being the negative that's like,
Correct. So I will be honest and tell you, in my journey in the nonprofit space, there have been places that have welcomed that more than others. Unfortunately, when that hasn't been welcomed, then I pull back because it's not safe for me to share these things, right? And so that has been, for me, constantly trying to find the environment that is safe to share these things. I'll be honest and say, because I know verse, it's easier for me to talk about this.
Absolutely.
But when I'm on another podcast where there isn't relationship, these things can be really challenging. The important thing to keep in mind, though, when we're talking about philanthropy and we're talking about fundraising, is that it always needs to be meaningful for the donor.
Right.
It needs to be a meaningful experience for them. Not all of them want the same experience. So if you look at something that's so common, but it's like Well, we do a gala every year. Okay, well, this will happen like when I'm doing some consulting. So yeah, this is the time of year we do the gala. Okay, well, let's talk about your numbers. Do you raise money in this gala? Well, I mean, not a lot. Okay, cool. Do people come? Yeah, but they don't really give. Okay. How many hours does it take your staff to be able to pull this off? And they're like, oh gosh, the entire quarter we are wiped out. And then the night of the event, people cry and all of this. And I'm like, can we just stop? Because first of all, if your donors aren't responding, that means that it hasn't been meaningful. And so then we have to switch the status quo. Well, my board would never. My executive director would never. People expect this, but it is not meaningful for your donor. So we have to pump the brakes. So those are some types of rebellious conversations that are important on behalf of the donor.
Absolutely.
And then the health of the organization.
And being a rebel, obviously it takes courage and being bold. I love even your mission statement, some of the bold missions and the things you're chasing. Tell me about storytelling and share me a time when that occurred, even recently or in the past, where saying no or halting or stopping something, taking a risk. Anything come to mind?
So you're talking about where I have put the brakes on.
They brought you in to accelerate it. You're like, time out. Actually, this may be the wrong idea.
Yeah. So I always will come into an organization and start by analyzing the numbers. So while I may say that I'm a creative and it may make people feel like I'm instantly going to like themes and color schemes and all that kind of stuff, that really isn't it. It's data driven for me because the data tells the truth.
Yeah.
Right? So we either have numbers or we don't have numbers.
Now, Lisa, on that,
Yeah.
where did you pick that up? Because as a creative, that's not natural or normal. You didn't get that in music school. Although there's numbers and elements to music and does that innate? Did you obviously went to school and further education for it?
Yeah, so that was a learned behavior for sure. And that was going to graduate school. So I have my master's in nonprofit administration from North Park University in Chicago. And there were classes that you had to take. And I will tell you, going into them, I was terrified.
Wow.
You know, as someone who is a musician or whatever, we're told we're just not good at math when really music is mathematical at its heart, right? So I was so intimidated. I will tell you, I was so intimidated to even apply to graduate school because the thought of not getting in was scarier to me than actually being in the program for 3 years. I was like, please just don't tell me I can't do this. I don't know, you know what I mean? I'll never recover, you know, was kind of my thing. And so going into that area, even classes like law, nonprofit law, felt really intimidating for me. But then because of my love for the sector, as I was getting into it, and these professors who became mentors and really walked beside me, telling me that I had what it takes and that this would help you.
Love it.
It became very motivating, and you know, and I did much better than I would have ever anticipated. But I had to learn it. I don't know how you could be proficient in philanthropy without being able to analyze data.
So was there some catalyst that kind of, you know, took you out of this creative world that pushed you into, I want to do this thing that isn't supernatural for me?
Yeah, so that's great. I love that question because it means that everybody has the potential to do something new.
It's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I graduated in theater and never did it a day after graduation.
Wow.
I had
I'm sure that's pretty common for a lot of people, but
actually kind of what happened was a couple months before graduation, my entire class was like, it's so exciting. We're going to move to New York and all live in the same place and you know, and be starving actors. And I remember being like, this is how this ends. Like, why did no one tell me? I know it's going to be worse than this. Like, I don't want to do this. No. And so I ended up going into like sales for a little while and got married and then had my children and stayed home with my kids for about 15 years. It was through their little sports teams that had to raise money. Like, I didn't Let me back up. I didn't know what a nonprofit organization was. I did not grow up in a philanthropic home. We didn't volunteer. We didn't give. I didn't have a mom and dad who sat down and were like, yeah, so we make this much money and then we give this much away. Like there was none of that in my home. So I didn't even know really what a nonprofit organization was. So
that's so encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Because some like, oh, this is legacy.
No.
And the fact that, and you're leading a successful, nonprofit, it's incredible. But sorry, keep going.
But no, it's true. Like I just really want to be honest with that. Same thing with leadership. I didn't grow up in a home with two strong parents who were leaders. Like I didn't have a mom who sat down with me and was like, "This is how to be a strong woman." Like that conversation never happened. So, so I started learning about nonprofits like through my children's sports teams or their little music things. And then I learned that the church was a nonprofit organization, which I didn't even know, to be really honest with you.
And many don't know that.
Many
do not know that.
Churches are nonprofit organizations. Let's just be clear about that.
FYI.
Our church went through a big growth phase. It started to become multi-site when like people didn't know what that was, kind of a thing. And they hired me to lead the communications efforts.
Awesome.
Because I had just done a couple things on the side, and all of a sudden they thought I was really good at this, which I think I'm average. But anyway, I knew early in that leadership role that I didn't know enough about how that organization worked to actually be as proficient of a leader as I wanted to be. Like I felt like my my street smarts were decent, but I didn't have any book smarts to back that up, So then I found this program at North Park that was all dedicated to the sector. Again, didn't even know that degree existed. And so I applied. So I was working full-time, going to school, part-time, and I knew this was my space. Probably in the intro to nonprofit organizations class, 3 months in, I was like, this is where I should be. And my husband, who is just a rock star, said, I think what you should do is quit your job and go full-time on this degree, and let's get you where you're supposed to be.
Wow.
And then that's what happened.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
How did you guys raise the funds for that? Because that's its own thing.
It's so true. And actually, he and I were both going to graduate school at the same time. He was getting an MBA, and our goal was we have to get done before the kids go to college, because we couldn't do 3 at one time. So we
could all go to the
motored.
same school. That'd be great. They would love that.
Right.
Well, is somebody jumping in, whether they have your position, your role, or they're seeking to add that person to their nonprofit. You've mentioned it earlier, looking for the administrative, the love for people. What if you're hiring somebody what are some things to look for besides that? Some of the key aspects and some metrics to look for, some experience.
Yeah.
What would you?
Well, can I tell a story?
Please.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so when I came to New Life Solutions, it was about building the philanthropy team, because that was an organization that was based on 2 major fundraisers a year, raising all of the funds for the year.
Wow.
Then COVID came in and they couldn't do either of those events. And so I started talking to the CEO. I had another job. I was working somewhere else, and he was just saying, somebody said, you know stuff about this. What would it take to turn this into revenue generation that happens all throughout the year, not just 2 times a year, because we have opened ourselves up to too much liability in the structure. So we went back and forth. We talked for months. We were just talking about this the other day. Months of me being like, no, it would have to be like this. And he'd like, all right, let me think about that. And then he'd come back and be like, I do want it like this. What about this? And so we went back and forth. So I was hired and really had maybe 1 person on the team.
Wow.
But I knew I needed a major gift officer, because that was the program we needed that we didn't have. And so I ended up being at one of the events. I think I had worked there just a handful of weeks. And there was this employee who her job was far more administration in regard to just like processing maybe sponsorships for the event. But she had the opportunity to speak. Now, this was on a high school football field, okay? And it was May in Florida, so it's like 140.
Man,
we're all wearing
PTSD.
Right? We're all wearing these really like unattractive T-shirts, and I picture her. I know she had like a karaoke machine and a microphone, and she's talking to this stands, and I'm just watching, and she's saying, thank you for all that you do, and then goes on to tell her story, which was incredibly vulnerable. And that if she would have known that New Life Solutions was in existence, she probably wouldn't have made the decision that she made. Again, in the heat, in the middle of a football field with a karaoke machine and a really unattractive t-shirt. And I remember going, she's the person.
Yeah.
She's the major gift officer because she has the story and she has the passion. I can teach all the other things.
I love that.
I can teach all the other things.
Wow.
So when you say who should be on your team, it's someone who ideally is connected to the mission, has a story. It doesn't necessarily have to be their personal story, but that they would have an injustice inside of them that they want to see made right. That's the heart of philanthropy. That's what we're doing. Because I actually believe that we were all born with an injustice to see made right.
I agree.
The scriptures say that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And we're all different. We all look different, right? All of our fingerprints are different or whatever. But part of that is this injustice that we want to see made right. In philanthropy, we're trying to find those people who have that injustice they want to see made right and connect them with an organization that makes it right.
That meets it.
And then it's not just about giving. It's about them finding more purpose in their life because they're seeing that injustice made right. That is philanthropy.
I love that.
And it's not about skill either. It's so much passion.
Correct.
And have you found that will overcome a lot of lack in that area?
Well, because you can teach it and you can learn it. So I guess another side skill that's important is someone to be teachable.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you have someone who's like, I know what I'm doing, you know what I mean? They're like that
Yeah.
toddler who says they can tie their shoes. Do you know what I mean? Like I need someone who
I have
says,
one of those.
okay, sorry, man. But there are some great resources that if you're hungry to learn, and this woman in particular her hunger to learn is amazing. But there's the Association of Fundraising Professionals meetings that you can go to. There's all kinds of resources that can help you learn things. But it's understanding the mission, your connection to it, and the injustice.
Well, you shared with us earlier, but give us those tools, the tricks. Give us a scoop. Somebody listening, they've got the passionate person, they've identified, equip them, point us the right way. If they're trying to build that team, what are some things to read, where to go, what to search?
Okay, my absolute favorite book on fundraising is called Thirst. It's Scott Harrison's book, and he's the founder of Charity Water.
Yes.
It is required reading for my teams.
Oh, I love that.
Because he talks about philanthropy differently. And it's very much resonates with my belief system. So they must read Thirst.
Have you been to one of their charity events, by the way?
I have not, but I wish. I've seen them online, and
we talked about this
they're magic.
in another episode. I've attended one. Highly recommend.
Oh my goodness!
If you can get an invite or get in there, it's impactful.
I really believe they're one of the best nonprofits in the United States right now. Their website's the best. Everything's the best.
And they've led the way with this, even the style, the how they've
Well, the 100% model is what you're talking about. I was able to bring that into an organization. My one prior to New Life Solutions. The 100% model is where you get a group of supporters who truly believe in the work that you're doing, and they cover the overhead costs. And so then you can truly tell donors that every single dollar that they give is actually going to the program department.
Very challenging to implement.
Correct.
It's very challenging, correct?
Correct.
Because if somebody tries to do that, what are some obstacles that are going to, and we'll keep going with the resources.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because I want,
Okay, so I would say you need the right people. So again, it's that match. And you need people who this isn't a first ask. This is like the 90th ask.
Bingo.
Where they understand the exclusivity of it and the importance of it. And then it also gets into the space of endowed giving, which we can probably talk about at a different time. But ideally, that would become an endowed gift. So then forever and ever, that part is taken care of. So,
fantastic.
yeah.
No, that's good.
Resources.
Resources.
Okay, my second favorite book is called Asking, and it's by a gentleman named Gerald Panis, who has passed. This book is out of print, so if you're interested in it, you must run and get it now, the used copies. He talks about how to ask, which is the scariest part of fundraising, apparently. Or it's at least what people are scared of.
I can confirm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is to go for it, to inspire vision, but then finish it. Ask.
Sure, but
right? Tell me.
Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, don't spoil. Well, we're going to link to the book, but.
Okay, but asking should never be a surprise.
Bingo.
Okay, so it should never surprise your donor. And in fact, my team does this. I do this. I will say, I'm reaching out to you today because I think it'd be great to get together. I want you to know that I'm not going to ask for money in this meeting. We're just going to talk about what your gifts are currently doing. Okay. Then I, maybe 4 months down the line, right, would say, hi, I'm calling to get together again. I will be asking for your participation in this meeting. And what it does there is it gives the donor the dignity of, if they're not ready to give, then they'll just say, you know what, I'm not ready at this time. And then I can say to them, when are you? When do you think you might be?
Oh, that's great too.
Right? And they can say, well, actually, my bonus structure is a little different than it has been in the past. And so it'd be better if you reach to me in 3 months because I really feel like I'm going to do well there. But it just should never be a pop quiz. Nothing in philanthropy should ever be a pop quiz. But somehow this ask mechanism has gotten black labeled, when reality is that it should bring the donor the most joy ever. So I kind of think about it, and not to dumb it down, but it's kind of like asking someone to prom. They know that the ask is coming, right? Because you've been maybe dating a little bit or whatever. And the dance is around the corner, okay? So we're not surprised. But let that donor have the joy of saying yes, because it brings them great joy to do so. So we don't go in half-baked, like, well, maybe you'd want to, help because you kind of helped before, and I don't know, I thought about you, and, what do you think? No, that, no one wants to be asked anything like that.
I love that.
So that book really talks about it. It talks about it in the capital campaign space, but the points of it apply to anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's worth the podcast right there.
Well, let's maybe follow that a little bit. You've probably heard of this thing called tip fatigue. It's, something that maybe a lot of us experienced lately. And let me know if this follows what you were just saying. But I would imagine there's also probably something called donor fatigue. Where you're asked so much, or maybe you're asked in the wrong way so often. Help orgs with that. How do they not do that? How do they do it well?
Right. Okay. So what's important to be sure that you don't get in that space, okay, is that the asks are meaningful for the donor. Okay. And it's a two-way street, not a one-way street. And this is really hard. But this, making things meaningful for the donor, is so important because, again, they're built with this injustice that they want to see made right. When we just come at them and never give them a space to respond, that's when it starts to get tiring. Think about when you were maybe in junior high, or if you have a junior higher that all the time asks you for money. Right? So, hey, can I have $10 to go get this? Can I have $15 to go get this? And you're like, oh my gosh, just stop, right? Just stop it. That's how that happens, is I keep sending you a mailer. I never look to see if you're a person who wants a mailer. I've never done that. Again, we're going back to data research. How many of the donors respond to a quarterly appeal? In the organization that I'm in now, we have a certain population that we've identified that do well with those appeals. We also have a certain population that wants the one-on-one connection, right? So we also have a certain population that wants to give monthly. You have to segment your donors. And if you don't do that and you throw everything at them, so go to this event, go to this run, here's an appeal, here's a Thanksgiving card because I'm thankful, might not have asked that time, but the rest of them I do, they can sniff you out. They know that you're not targeting it to them, and you must, or else they will get tired.
And
right?
It feels impersonal.
It
at
does.
That point. Yeah. And tell me about building trust, like with your junior hire. You gave them the money, they went and bought that Pokemon card deck, not speaking from experience here.
No.
And then that's in the trash on the floor. And what happens there? Then it's like, I'm not giving you another $10.
Correct.
How do you build that trust, that, the integrity of again, back to data, and what are some tools?
So a great tool that you can do to help with this is surveying your donors. There's a phrase that if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. Okay, so think about it. If you want money, ask for advice.
That's great.
If you want advice, ask for money. So you could say, hey, H, we basically need about $10,000 to stay above water. So, I was just kind of hoping that you'd be the guy.
Yeah, here's how to get it. I'll tell you how.
And you'd be like,
you know what you should do?
Yeah. You know what? I've been thinking about you guys lately. And what I think you should do is, right, versus.
Now that's intuitive to me. So keep going.
Okay, versus. So you probably know, H, because you've been with us for a long time, that we're struggling right now. And I want to meet with you to get your ideas because I know you care. Like, I know you really care about what we do. And I think about, like, your past support, and I know you want to see us continue. So could we have lunch and you could maybe share with me some ideas? Because truthfully, I feel kind of all out.
Boom. Ooh. Can we script? Let's put that on the script. That should be scripted.
Right there.
At least original. Boom. Take that to the bank or to, not to the bank, or to the advice room. Whatever.
We'll
that's
toss
so
you
true,
some
though.
commission, though, too. Yeah, don't worry.
And that's so true, though, because it plays to the person's right
Well,
desire.
So now that feels less intuitive to me. The first one does. So now, obviously, you're an expert. We're trusting you. Why is it? Why is it that when you ask for advice, usually it's solve it with money? Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, so when you're saying, like, we're going to get together and we're going to talk about solutions.
Yeah, give me some ideas. Help me out.
Right. So, and they might not all be monetary. They might be, hey, I know 3 other people who actually know more than me. Let's all go for lunch.
Yeah.
Okay. What we have to get away from, and this is counterintuitive, is we can wait for this money. I mean, ideally, unless we're in a totally, drastic situation, which there would be different answers for that. But let's not let adrenaline run this thing.
Yeah.
Right? Let's let wisdom, let's let data, let's let people that we have formed these relationships with. But see, that's why we need to know that they actually feel that injustice for the cause that we have, because then they'll be with us. Then they'll be with us. So I guess that's what I'm thinking there.
Yeah, and it's not the dollar in the moment, but the network, the solution, the idea that will innovate an event or innovate a practice that results in the money.
Got it.
Ultimately.
That's great.
The actual exchange of money is the smallest part of this in regard to time. We're talking about the difference between transactional and transformational.
It's great.
This is because we're trying to transform this person's life, because that when they feel more purpose in their life, then none of this is even hard anymore. They're even calling us.
Yeah.
I just sold my business. I've got these extra resources, and I thought we should have a conversation about it. It's a dream come true as a fundraiser, but that doesn't mean it won't happen.
Correct.
But we have got to invest the time ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we also have to resist the low-hanging fruit. So it's so common that fundraisers, like, we get them to say, so tell us your favorite part about the ministry. And it's just like, oh, we just love the mission. Oh, great, perfect. And we stop because we're afraid that we'll lose them. Instead of saying, okay, but what exact part of the mission do you like? Is it this part? Is it this part? Or is it this part? And we just keep asking the questions and keep digging. One of my professors in graduate school, who became a mentor, he's no longer with us now. His name was Dr. Ferrugia. And in class, he would do this constantly. So he would say something like, okay, well, we read this white paper and it didn't come to a good end. And I'm just wondering where you felt in the white paper a change could have been made that might have saved the organization. And so you'd raise your hand and he'd say, okay, Lise, what do you think? And I'd say, well, obviously it's this, 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 or this. And then he'd look at me and go, and? So you kind of sit there and like dig a little deeper and be like, well, okay. This would have really helped. And he'd go, okay. And probably 3 times where he really pushed you to get to the better answer, the richer answer, the more meaningful answer. We need to work that way in philanthropy, but they're trying to trust us in it too. So, but we have to ask more and more questions so we can really find that place where they will identify richly with the work that we do specifically.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Incredible.
You talked about the fundraiser's dream, getting that phone call. I've got extra, I got left over, I don't know where to put it, tell me where. How do you stay top of mind? How do you stay in front of people? What are some things you've done and are doing?
Okay, so it depends on how they want to be communicated with. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that in a mailed appeal. Do you think it's even possible that a donor could have an experience with a mailed appeal where they went, that was so satisfying? And the answer is yes. How do we make it meaningful for the donor when we're writing the copy and we're writing the content? Usually what I get and what I see, because I give too, okay, and I collect all the mail that I get, and then I'll give it sometimes to my staff members and be like, all right, open it, tell me what you liked, what would you change, all that kind of stuff. Most of the time we just hear a story, and most of the time it ends in hope. So yay, because you gave, this person now has the best of all backpacks loaded with the nicest shoes. So you should give.
Why?
Because you already took care of it. They have a great backpack, so I just toss it. You don't need me now.
Yeah.
Ending in hope, that was kind of a thing, and maybe 10 years ago, we would always end in hope. Not anymore. We need to end, it needs to be gritty the whole way through. We need to not be afraid to really tell them their story, something that we're doing at New Life Solutions more transparently. Let's not be afraid of how gritty the story is. It will not turn the donor off. It will actually engage them more.
Yeah.
Even, like I said, we're a faith-based organization. Recently, what I would say is normally in a faith-based organization, you might see some prayer requests, right? What we're doing now is we're asking for specific prayer requests for a specific person. Because then I don't.
It's down to the singular.
It's down to this one person.
Name.
She is concerned about this for her child. Well, I can identify with that better. I've been concerned about that for my child too, right? But here's something super magical. Is when we give the donor the opportunity to respond, not just financially and not even with prayer, but with a note of encouragement to the person. So we did an appeal where we gave the donors the opportunity to write a note of encouragement to a staff member who works in one of our clinics.
That's awesome.
Now, we were really clear, please just sign with your first name, no emails or phone numbers. You know what I mean? If you need anything, give me a call. We really didn't want that kind of a thing. But we wanted them to, from their heart, talk about, how to encourage them. We got over 150 responses.
Wow.
And this was mailed and email.
Okay.
But from a mailer, we would put the card in, and then they would sign it. And then we also had a way to do it electronically as well.
That's incredible.
150.
Did you have any demographics on that? Was there a certain demographic that was responding more or less? Or was that across
was
the
it
board?
targeted from the beginning?
Okay, so it was targeted from the beginning in regard to people who have given via an appeal. Okay, so it wasn't broad-based, just anyone in our database.
Yeah.
Because we have a large database.
They responded to something similar to this before.
But they had never been given the opportunity to write a note before.
Amazing. And that level of engagement, from a mailer, is incredible because that's
so
very
much
difficult to do.
It's so much easier to give $20 than to do that.
Fair.
It sure
you know
is.
what I mean?
It actually is.
But the fact that you again, I do think that goes back to the innate desire we've got an injustice.
Right.
Yeah.
We want to see it made right. Way back in the day, I worked at the Center for the Visually Impaired in Atlanta. And one of the holiday cards that we did there, we had a special brailled message inserted.
That's cool.
And then we included the alphabet card so that they could try to discern what the Christmas message was. And then we had a website that they could go to get the answer. And then my development staff would call the donors and say, have you gotten the message yet? And some of them would say, don't tell me, my grandkids are coming and we want to figure it out. You know what I mean? Or
so
others
cool.
have been like, I've been working on this for like, 3 days and I can't figure it out. But it really brought the donor to the scene, which is one of the most important things we can do in philanthropy is get that donor as close to the work as possible.
Yeah.
Well, touching Braille is like, and one of the things we did as a team was we learned how to Braille our names and Braille our donors' names. So in a thank you note, we could then Braille their name and then like put a little arrow and say, this is your name in Braille. Cool. But how do we get the donor as close to the scene of the work as possible? And that costs nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, other than our humiliation when we took the brailing class, and it's really hard. And it was a great team building skill. And we actually went on to make that into a team building event for our sponsors who could just come in and actually learn how to work a brailer, taught by someone who was totally blind, by the way.
Wow.
So they would check your work and say, okay, so let me guess what your name is. You know what I mean? And then they'd say something that wasn't even close to Lisa. Do you know what I mean?
Mephibosheth.
Yeah. Wait, hang on one second. Let me do that again.
Very nice. And just the conversation starters / stories that are told, which priceless, priced, but there's a priceless, ongoing return on that, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Tell me about this, Lisa. A lot of nonprofits struggle with acquisition versus retention and that tension. What are your thoughts? What are some things you've learned?
Yeah, so it's so important. So let's talk about acquisition first because these two aren't connected, even though people may think that they are. So every organization should have some donor acquisition activities built into their annual fundraising plan. So it can be anything like a board fundraiser event, where the board members know that part of their board responsibility is every year we're gonna have this luncheon and you bring 3 people who know you, respect you, but don't know anything about the ministry. That's a powerhouse acquisition strategy. Another one that's great though is service projects. So think about it so we're gonna have them come and clean the kitchen. They are inside the walls of your ministry. So talk about taking a donor to the scene. And as someone is giving the orientation is down there, that is where the animals who need to be rescued come in, and there's that's the surgical center and stuff, super exciting. But here's the kitchen, and if you guys could just clean this top to bottom or whatever. Well, then as they're cleaning dishes, they're talking about where they are and putting stuff back, and people are so thankful for it. And when they're driving away, if they have that injustice, it's going to fire. It's going to ignite. Yeah. And then they'll say, you know what, that was so fun as a family or as a group of friends that we did this. I've never even thought of giving to them. All right, how did I miss it?
Now, Lisa, with that, to call back the ask, in your strategy, in your opinion, is an ask made an event at the board meeting or at the service project? Yeah. Is it done at that moment? Because is it too soon?
I think they're both different.
Tell me.
So I think the service project, it's too soon, but I'm taking their mailing, right?
Yeah. Okay, so that's a different ask, though.
Yes,
it's a different ask because you want to communicate.
Correct.
And engage.
So I'm going to write a thank you note for them coming, and I'm going to let them know a step 2. If you guys enjoyed that, you might enjoy this. Of
course.
Right? The board event, I think that's one where your executive director is going to address everyone. And I think an ask could be interesting there. I would probably make it restricted so they knew exactly what we needed.
Bingo.
So we need, I don't know, whatever. It's going to be this much. And I appreciate your consideration. But again, I would maybe want them to know that prior to coming.
And obviously capacity there, also relationship. So you're coming in
a little,
of course.
Right.
But would you let them know? Possibly?
I possibly would.
With an opportunity to participate.
Because the board member would want to know that. And
Absolutely.
I wouldn't ever again want to pop quiz a board member, right? They don't know.
And I love it too on the service project to not be afraid to gather information.
You must.
To communicate. That's a miss if you don't.
It's a
so many times you missed it by not having the opportunity to speak to reignite that fire that they felt or that memory.
Correct.
Or share some photos from the event.
Correct.
That they can relive that.
Sure.
So definitely a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. So donor acquisition, you should have those in those should always be a part of the plan. Another way to do that is like your walks, your runs, because people just like to run, right? So have one, right? And then that's a way they can connect with who you are too. We're going to capture all of their information. Apparently this Giving Tuesday thing can do that. I am so not a fan. If you've ever heard any other podcast I've done, I like loathe it. It's like a Hallmark holiday. Do you know what I mean? That's like.
No, what is that? Is it the saturation? Is it the.
Okay, this is what it is. It's like if you don't participate, you look like you don't need it, which I can't. And there's always one or two that get like $45 bajillion that keep it alive. When the rest of us, I've got my social media person, she's like posting, they're like posting all the time, and we get like $3,000. Do you know what I mean? And they're discouraged. Like it discourages the staff, to be honest.
Gotcha.
But some people will get new people that way. And it doesn't cost a lot or whatever, and you kind of, just have a plan and move forward with it. But some people do well with donor acquisition. So that's different. Those are some different ways. You should always have it in in your calendar. Retention is a totally different animal. And I have some pretty strong opinions about it. Your donors are leaving you. Well, Giving USA survey or other large organizations that track this are saying that you're losing 60% of your donors every year. This is a national statistic, and it's a problem. So it is that revolving door.
Many factors, obviously, from is it economy, inflation, all the way to trust and
all of those things. But I will tell you, I really believe that the remedy, the elixir for this, are meaningful donor experiences.
Yeah.
You lost them because it wasn't meaningful. We can say all other kinds of research and things on that. You didn't put the PS in the right place, and so they didn't give because they didn't read it. Like, there's all kinds of data that says that stuff, and I'm not saying that it doesn't matter, but I'm saying that if you go through an entire year and you don't present a meaningful opportunity, that ignition, it's going to stop firing. And I'm going to start going somewhere else because, again, I was wired to care, and you're not helping me. So I got to go somewhere else to find it because this is really one of the purposes that I have here on this planet. It's a big deal. So I will leave.
So where do you think nonprofits, if what they should be doing is continuing to connect this purpose and this passion, where do they veer off? Like, what is it that often they think is more important than that, whether consciously or subconsciously, that takes them away from doing that, and how do they recorrect?
Okay, so I think there's a couple things there. One is sometimes we just get too fancy.
Complicated.
We just make it too complicated. We end up not sending out the appeal because we didn't have enough graphics, and then we just got tired. When really, if we just would have done a letter on like the executive director's letterhead, and he just would have talked about what's going on, or she would have said what the need was and how they could help or whatever, that would have been fine. I mean, there have been times when I've worked with small nonprofits especially who get very overwhelmed. 4 appeals a year should be sent out. That's the rhythm that works. And they're just like, I just can't keep coming up with what to say. I just can't keep, and it's just taking a moment and just kind of writing your heart on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, get some volunteers in to fold and stamp and get it out and get it out. So sometimes I think we get overwhelmed with the other ones that are so big and fancy, and we feel like we just can't compete.
That's where creativity can hinder, and we overdo, where simplicity, clarity, something is going to be better than nothing. Fair?
I mean, when is the last time that you've actually gotten a letter on letterhead that was maybe hand addressed on the outside? I mean, really? I'd open it.
And not the fake hand address. We can tell, by the way. We can tell organizations who print the handwriting font. We can tell.
Easy now. They were going to sponsor the podcast, Colin. Now they're not.
We don't
Back
want them.
off, man.
We don't want them anymore.
Back off, man.
You're making me mad.
Right. But sometimes simplicity is the most honest thing to do. So I think part of how we go sideways is we get fancy, too fancy, or we're intimidated by the others. And I do think intimidation is really a real thing. Like, why would they give to my little independent animal shelter when there's a whole national thing, right?
Man, okay, so that's we could do a whole nother episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that? I mean, you lead through, you're an expert in the scene. Are you, or how do you protect from intimidating? Because you're trying to be the best and the most successful as well. Fair?
Well, I mean, we were sharing the other night at the benefit event that our organization is able to spend $5,000 a month in search engine optimization. The other side spends $30 million.
Correct. That's very intimidating.
So why try?
What's a drop in the bucket in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Right. Why try? Right. But if you're committed to your mission and you believe in it, then we have to do whatever we can with however much that we have.
Yeah.
So, donor retention, making it meaningful is the heart of it.
Yeah.
And that can happen in very simple ways. Another thing that it's donor appreciation is really important. Thanking. I have had some really terrible thank you notes come my way lately.
We're so sorry. That was Colin. Yeah.
Colin, this was, you know what? I was using this opportunity to bring that up.
Yeah. He used a bot. I know I told him not to.
Stop. Sincerity is really important. And a handwritten thank you note, not to be like super old school, but like we don't get them very often anymore. So sometimes we can just go back to what we did 10, 15 years ago and it feels fresh and new. You get an envelope that's hand addressed with a real stamp on it. And you're like, I am going to open that up. I am going to open that up. So sincerity, igniting that passion, making it meaningful, I think could upend the retention issue. In fact, it's something that I kind of daydream about doing doctoral research on. Could we make the connection that if a donor felt it was meaningful, and then they would say how long they stayed or if they were still with them, doing quant and qual data on that, I think would be really fascinating because we keep doing data in the sector, but we rarely ask those questions. And so I just wonder if it's something altogether different than what we're saying.
And that's the thesis started here too.
Right here, you guys.
Come on,
right
the
so
book. We got the book.
If you haven't already, you're locking yourself into that PhD.
I love it. Memorable experiences. Creatively, you shared. I've experienced some of them. Anything comes to mind?
Memorable donor experiences.
Yes, something that
How have you put that into practice?
proud of personally, or something you're excited about creatively, or the success of it?
Well, first, let me share with you why this is important to me personally. And it's because my husband and I, we are philanthropists and we love to give, and it's been an important part of our growth as a human, and probably for many others. But I will really tell you, over the 30 years that we have been active in giving, we can probably count on one hand of an experience that was meaningful.
Wow.
That we still talk about today. That is sad.
That is.
Yeah.
That is.
Now, we continue to give because we know it's good for us, all right? It's a discipline that helps us in our development as a human.
Yeah.
But it has been very rare for us that an experience has been meaningful.
Wow.
And so that's part of what propels it, is because it's personal.
You want to fix it.
I want to fix it. I want to fix it.
You're
And
changing it.
I would love, to change that. And I believe there's others who have had it be similar.
Wow.
Would you be willing to share what that was and why it was meaningful?
Some experiences that we've had.
the one that you're talking about, why was that so meaningful and why were all the other ones not?
So one of our most meaningful donor experiences happened in Haiti. So I worked for a nonprofit that works to help children who are dealing with starvation and malnutrition. And so they provide like a rice-based meal to children in third world countries. And so we would take donors in country to see their donations at work, which is probably a whole nother thing that we could talk about because it was amazing. But we got to, and at this one, my husband got to come with me. So I'm bringing donors through myself. I believe in this for sure. We do as a couple, and we get to one of the artisan workshops. So this artisan workshop, they teach Haitians how to make different things. One of them was a clay mug. And then that way they can earn an income because our organization purchased those mugs. And then we would sell those mugs at certain events or whatever. And then they would be able to feed their children. Well, one of the kilns had broken. And they weren't able to have the production that they normally would have. And so that meant that they would probably have to lay off some workers because there wasn't enough work. And one of the VPs who were on this trip, said, look, this money's not going to go to our organization. But if you believe in feeding children, this has to work again. And he went individually to people on that trip and said, would you be able to? And one of those conversations was with my husband, and we have never forgotten it. Like, we dream about someday being able to go back to Haiti and show our children.
Oh, cool.
And so hopefully someday all of that will be healthy again, and we'd be able to go back there. But that one we'll never forget. Think of how personal that was. It was right in front of our face. One-on-one conversation. I am going to ask you right now, in this moment, right now.
Yeah.
And they did a great job with follow-up on delivery, photos. It's here. It's coming off the truck. It's what, you know what I mean? And so that has been meaningful for us. Even we still will see things online of that kiln.
I love that. Tell me this, Lisa. A lot of our listeners are in ministry and church space. Some of the pastors and leaders are trained or equipped over the experience through a lot of pain and fails. Some, though, are seeking. They want to do better. They want to, the two different things, right? From acquisition, developing donor generosity, the spirit of generosity. Yeah. Even the idea of you saying that it's not even about that, it's about the discipline and the obedience, and it's good for me. Talk to pastors and leaders. Talk to churches right now. You don't have to name anybody. You have to name your church, but challenge, because I think that sometimes, and I've been in ministry and I've been in churches in the space where sometimes we don't share the story, we don't do this, or sometimes we're not clear. Sometimes we fatigue. Sometimes we beat them over the head, and sometimes we misuse things. There's a whole. Talk to us.
Well, if we want to talk about donor fatigue, 52 times a year, right?
Yep.
And what are we going to do for this giving moment? But I will say, in my experience, that I have rarely seen a giving moment that I have felt like nailed it. Wow. Most of the time, I'm like fanning myself. I'm like,
hurry up,
getting sweaty. Like, no, stop. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the things that we've already talked about, right? Is how do we make this meaningful for the person sitting in the seat? And then also, if you think about the amount of minutes it takes to make an ask, okay, like even across a lunch meeting, it's the same amount of minutes that you have in your giving moment. So I don't want to hear you don't have enough time, because when it gets to the point where we're past golf and we're past how the kids are doing, and they know that I'm going to make an ask, because that's the thing at church every week. So this isn't like a pop quiz. We all know it's coming, right? It's about the same amount of minutes when we're getting down to the brass tacks of it. What I see that's missing are a couple things. One of the things that really never gets said is there is a spiritual gift of giving. And we rarely acknowledge those people who have a heart naturally to give.
Wow.
We know the people who are having a hard time letting go, right? Like, they're like, I can't, I'm sorry, I can't. But we also have people who walk in and they are always kind of looking because they were wired to naturally give. Just like people who are wired to be hospitable. It's equitable. It should be treated equitably, is how I feel.
That's great.
We honored the child care workers. We'll clap, right? So it'll be like Children's Ministry Sunday, and the kids will do their best to like do worship or whatever. And then we give a big hand to all the volunteers and staff who volunteer in children's ministry. Have you ever had a Sunday? Those people who love to give, let's give it up for them. Never. Never. So that means those people never really get a pat on the back, ever. But here's something else that's really important, and this covers all of what we're talking about in fundraising. People give to what they're grateful for, and they give to what breaks their heart. Okay? So if we put that over, that's a quote from Andy Stanley. If we put that over the church, we could be saying things like, instead of, God says it's good for you to give, which he does, or we really need this ... we could say, I bet there's some of you sitting here in the seats this morning who are grateful for this church. You are a totally different person today because you're here. And we also know that there's people who are sitting here today that it breaks your heart that your best friend's not sitting next to you and you want him to be here. And so it's in that spirit that today I want to ask you to think about supporting us generously, because your life has been changed and you want us to continue to be able to do that.
Come on, cue piano, cue the buck, cue that. Come on.
That's it.
That's it.
I think my church, I'm just going to send that blip.
Yeah, we're going to record this.
We're just going to play that this Sunday.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, if you're pastor in ministry, get Lisa to come talk to your team and your pastors, please. Yes, seriously.
My mind is blown.
Yeah, no, the help is needed. I think we have good hearts and good intentions, and 52 weeks is a lot.
It's a lot.
So the repetition gets old, and and don't get tired of it, because I think it matters. And celebrate, even teaching the spiritual gift of giving, and teaching that, and as a biblical concept. So thank you, Lisa. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
A couple of things. There's so much gold here we're going to have to, discern through. Promise you'll come back for another episode so we can talk more, so you can release the book. Please, let's get it published first, but release a book that will celebrate your doctorates, your second doctorate, and let's keep going. Thank you. Talk to us before we wrap up, because we've got amazing content. I hope you enjoyed and learned. New Life Solutions, how can they reach you? Where can they follow you? How can they talk to you?
Sure.
And how can they be a part of what you're doing?
Sure, thanks so much. So if you're curious about what we're doing here in the Tampa Bay area, please just go to newlifesolutions.org. We have a beautiful website that tells our story and talks about the different ways that we're trying to help our community every day. If you'd like to learn more about what it means to be a fundraising rebel and look at things differently, you can find me at LinkedIn, Lisa Stueckemann, Fundraising Rebel. I have a Facebook page, Fundraising Rebel. But, I would say to anybody who's out there, message me if you want to talk about this more. It's my joy. Obviously, I enjoy talking about it, and I want to encourage anyone in the space, because this matters. It really matters. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I've really enjoyed it, you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing the fire, the absolute fire. Are there any other, it's okay if not, but are there any other specific resources that you didn't get to mention that you want to make sure you get in people's hands?
Yeah. So I would encourage every fundraiser, every executive director to become a member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. There's a great chapter right here in Tampa Bay, but there's chapters all over the United States. I've spoken at their international conferences. And so the resources there are top notch. Some of them are free. Membership is under $350 or something like that. And you will have a community of others who are doing what you're doing. Amazing. And so let's do this in community and get that kind of support. I'm a huge fan of Veritas Group, and that's spelled Veritus.
We'll add the link to the show, by the way.
Yeah, all this will be in there.
Please. They have a great blog. They have a podcast. A lot of their resources are free. But where I learned a lot of what I was talking about today was in their major gifts certification, where you can, so I'm a Veritas scholar having taken this, but these principles we're talking about, they walk out in detail. I think it's 8 weeks of a course. I would really recommend that. And then if you're thinking about getting advanced degrees, there are some really great schools that have those programs. The Lilly School, which is part of Indiana University, and then also North Park University in Chicago. And I would say those are my most favorite and my go-tos. I encourage my staff to go to and that type of thing. So.
And are you available for consultation?
Any way it can be a support, I would love to.
Because if you listen to any of this, let alone the whole thing, and you're a nonprofit organization and you don't want to bring Lisa in some way, stop doing what you're doing.
Book her
because
now.
I don't know what in the world.
Book her now. Lisa, thank you so much. Appreciate it, you being on the podcast. Colin, take us out.
We're out. Like you said, no, this not really. This was amazing. This was super good. We definitely want to have you back. What are you doing next month? I will get you in here. But hey, thank you guys for listening. If you listen all the way through, especially for liking, subscribing, all that jazz. Thank you guys so much. We will be right back here in 2 weeks. We'll see you then for the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again for listening to the Nonprofit Renaissance. We hope it ignites a renaissance in you and helps you go further and grow faster. Be sure to share, rate, and subscribe. And if you'd like to recommend or be a guest on our show, send us an email at podcast@firstcreative.com.